Dear students, so we are starting with our lecture number 43, which is passive vibration isolation. One part is remaining, that is motion transmissibility. Then we will see the other two vibration isolation methods, that is active vibration control and semi-active vibration control, or active vibration isolation and semi-active vibration isolation. So this is the eighth lecture in unit number 5, measurement and control of vibration. The today's first topic is the motion transmissibility. So in last lecture we have seen the force transmissibility. So what is motion transmissibility? The motion transmissibility is when the motion is transformed from or transmitted from base of the machine or structure to the machine or instruments. So in this motion transmissibility, the base is excited by an amplitude y of t, that is y at any time t is equals to capital Y sine of omega t. So this is the curve for y of t at capital Y sine of omega t, where y is maximum displacement, sine is your, this is curve, sine curve with time and omega. So if you see, this is the displacement of mass in vertically upward direction, and so the acceleration is positive. So acceleration, so inertia force, it is opposite to that of acceleration, so it is mx double dot. So this is the acceleration. Now there is, this mass is displaced by x and y, the base is displaced by y. So in that condition, x is greater than y. If we assume this condition, so we can say that the stiffness, total displacement of this stiffness is x minus y, and total velocity for this damping is x dot minus y dot. This is already seen in your base excitation in second unit. So this is the acceleration, this is the spring force k x minus y, and this is the damping force, that is c into x dot minus y dot. So response of damped system under harmonic motion of the base. So there is base excitation. So sometimes the base or support of spring mass damper system undergoes harmonic motion. So that harmonic motion is shown in this figure. Let y of t denotes the displacement at any time t of base, and x of t, it is the displacement of mass from its static equilibrium position at any time t. Then the net elongation, that is net displacement of the spring, it is x minus y, and the relative velocity, it is x dot minus y dot between two ends of the damper. So this is the relative velocity between x and y, that is x dot minus y dot. So from free body diagram, we can write the equation of motion. So all these three forces, that is inertia force, spring force and damping force, are having same direction. So all are positive, is equals to 0. So according to the equation of motion or D'Alembert's principle, summation of inertia force plus external force is equals to 0. So this is inertia force mx double dot, and there are two external force, that is damping force C into x dot minus y dot and spring force K x minus y is equals to 0. So this is our first equation, that is mx double dot plus C into x dot minus y dot plus K into x minus y is equals to 0. Now so we know that the base is excited by an displacement y of t is equals to capital Y sine of omega t. So we can write this as, that is mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx, and these two terms are, that is this is minus ky and minus c dot c into y dot goes to this right hand side. So we get mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx is equals to ky plus cy dot, ky plus cy dot. So after simplification we get this term, that is mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx. This is the left hand side, and the right hand side is your ky plus cy dot. Now put the value of y and y dot in this equation. So what is the value of y? Y is equals to capital Y sine of omega t. So k into capital Y sine of omega t plus, what is value of y dot? Y dot is sine the derivative is cos of omega t into omega. So y omega cos of omega t. So c omega y cos of omega t. So this is your equation number 2. And this equation number 2, if we take common term y, so this can be equals to a sine of omega t minus phi alpha, a sine of omega t minus alpha. So what is value of a in that? We have taken y common, and square root of k square plus c omega y square. And what is value of alpha? Alpha is tan inverse of minus c omega upon k. This is already known to us. We are multiply and dividing with this square root of k minus c omega square. These are already known to us. So where a and alpha is given, so this shows that giving excitation to the base is equivalent to applying harmonic force of magnitude A to the mass. By using solution, the steady state amplitude xp is given by, so what is xp? Xp is equals to this y square root of k square plus c omega whole bracket square divided by square root of k minus m omega square whole bracket square plus c omega square. This is square root or raised to 1 by 2. Now this omega t minus alpha, it is actual angle, but after that there is an omega t minus phi 1 minus alpha. So this is coming into picture. So in that we know that phase angle phi 1, it is already known to us. So phi 1 is nothing but the tan inverse of c omega in bracket k minus m omega square. That is nothing but the 2 zeta omega upon omega n 1 minus omega upon omega n square. This is already known to us. We have seen this in equation in unit number 2. So using trigonometric function, we use xp t is equals to x sine of omega t minus phi. So we get x upon y. So this is value of x. So we get x upon y is equals to, so if we put this value to this equation, so we get x upon y is equals to both are square root, so raised to 1 by 2 k square plus c omega square upon k minus m omega square whole bracket square plus c omega whole bracket square. Now divide numerator and denominator by k square, so we get 1 plus c omega k is nothing but the 2 zeta r is nothing but the omega upon omega, so square upon 1 minus r square whole bracket square plus 2 zeta r bracket square. This is common formula. We are already seen this formula in unit number 2, that is base excitation. So this is the value of x upon y, and we know that the phase angle in this condition is phi 1 minus alpha or phi minus alpha. In that, the value of phi, it is tan inverse of c omega upon k minus m omega square. So that is nothing but the tan inverse of 2 zeta omega upon omega n divided by 1 minus omega upon omega n square. And what is value of alpha? Alpha is nothing but the tan inverse of c omega upon k. So this c omega k is nothing but the 2 zeta upon omega n. Tan inverse of 2 zeta omega upon omega. So this all we have already seen in unit number 2. So this x upon y, its ratio is called as motion transmissibility. So this is an important concept that I have missed in that unit. So what is the ratio? X upon y, that is steady state amplitude of mass divided by steady state amplitude of base. So that ratio of two amplitudes, it is known as the motion transmissibility, or it is also called as displacement transmissibility, because it is displacement of mass and displacement of base. So if we draw the diagram, that is variation of this displacement transmissibility, that is x upon y, with respect to phi and with respect to r, that is with respect to r means omega upon omega n ratio and phase angle response curve. This is transmissibility and this is phase angle. So if you see this curve, so this transmissibility curve, that is motion transmissibility curve, it is the curve of this displacement transmissibility or motion transmissibility versus frequency ratio. Now if we see at square root of 2, your transmissibility, that is motion transmissibility, is 1 for any values of zeta, and when the frequency ratio, that is omega upon omega n, is equals to 1 for any values of zeta, there is the TD value, it is maximum, and for when zeta is 0, then it is infinity. So, and this is phase angle response curve. In that, if we see at r, that is omega upon omega n is 1, so your phase angle is changes. Now when frequency ratio is less than 1, then phase angle increases with increase in frequency, and when frequency ratio is greater than 1, the phase angle is also increases with increase in frequency and damping ratio. So from these two curve, we draw some conclusions. So first conclusion is the value of motion transmissibility or displacement transmissibility, TD, is unity when the value of r is equals to 0. The value of r is equals to 0 and close to unity for small values of r. So if you see, for small values of r from 0 to say 0.25 or say 0.1 to, then it is close to unity. This is the first. Second is for undamped system, that is when the value of zeta is 0, then the displacement transmissibility is infinity at omega upon omega n is equals to 1. If you see this curve, so that curve is never meeting to each other, so it is infinity. Third, the value of displacement transmissibility is less than unity, that is the value of TD is less than unity when the value of r is greater than root 2. So if the value of r2 is R is greater than root 2, then your transmissibility is less than 1 for any amount of damping, for any values of zeta. Again, the value of TD is unity for all value of zeta at R is equals to root 2. So this is again another definition. Now, next conclusion is when value of R is greater than root 2. So when value of R is greater than root 2, so from this region, the smaller damping ratio, the smaller damping ratio leads to larger value of TD. Smaller damping ratio leads to larger value of TD. So this is, so for 0.10, this is large value. Then when R is less than, when R is less than root 2, so in that condition, the damping ratio leads to larger value of, so smaller damping. So for zeta is equals to 1, this is very low. And when the value of zeta increases, then this damping ratio is also increases. That is TD. That is displacement transmissibility is also increases. On the other hand, when R is equals to greater than root 2, then it is for smaller value of damping ratio leads to smaller value of TD. So for smaller value, so for zeta is equals to 0.01, so smaller value, there is smaller value of TD. So it is opposite in this condition, and greater than root 2, it is opposite. Now the displacement transmissibility TT, that is attains maximum for 0 is less than or equals to zeta is less than or equal to, that is when at frequency ratio R is equals to Rm, which is less than 1. It attains the maximum displacement transmissibility between 0 to 1. So these are the some conclusion which is drawn from the motion transmissibility curve. Now next, this is all about the passive isolation system. Now today we are going to see the next system, that is active isolation or active vibration control or active isolation system. So in active vibration isolation, it requires, or active vibration isolation system is requires an external power supply to perform its function. So this active vibration control or active vibration isolation, it requires external power supply or power source to perform its function. So a typical vibration isolation system is shown in this. A typical vibration isolation, that is active vibration isolation, is shown in this. Now this is passive vibration isolation. This is already same to this, that is there is no external power supply, and we are going to give a power supply, that is there is an actuator, there is an sensor. So this is active control system which controls this system. So that is called as active vibration control. So in this active control system, there are sometimes sensors, actuators, then there are some signal, that is sensor signal, actuator or control signal. So there are control laws of electronics. So depending upon signal, there may be a controller. So either there are various types of controller, either PID, PI, PD, that all you have know. So in active vibration control, it consists of a servo mechanism with sensor, signal processor, and an actuator, which is shown in this figure schematically. In this passive isolation system, or vibration in this active vibration isolation system, it maintains a constant distance L between the vibrating mass and reference plane. As the force F of t is applied to the mass is varies, the distance L tends to also varies. So change in length. So this change in length is sensed by sensor, and signal is proportional to the magnitude of excitation or response of the vibrating body is produced. So if there is change in length, then this change in length is sensed by sensor, and the signal produced which is proportional to the magnitude of excitation, that is response of the vibrating body. The signal processor produces a command signal to the actuator. This sensor sends the signal to this actuator, sends the signal to this controller, and controller sends the control signal to the actuator, and it controls the vibration. So the signal processor produces a command signal to the actuator based on sensor signal it receives. The actuator develops motion or force proportional to the command signal, and the actuation motion or force will control the base displacement based on distance ei, and so it maintains a desired constant value of base signal. So that is base x of t. Now there are different types of sensors which are available to create feedback signal based on either displacement, velocity, acceleration, jerk, or force. Then also there are the signal processor consists of passive mechanism or active mechanism. So passive mechanism like mechanical linkages, or there are active electronics or fluidic network that can perform function such as addition, integration, differentiation, attenuator, and amplification. So by using some active electronics control system or signal processor or fluidic network signal processor, we can do these functions. Now the actuator may be mechanical type such as a rack and pinion or ball screw mechanism. Then there are some fluidic system are there. There are some piezoelectric and electromagnetic force generating systems. So depending upon that, there is a active vibration control system or actuator. So depending upon different types of sensors, then signal processor and actuator use, the active vibration control system can be called as electromechanical, then electrofluidic, then electromagnetic, then piezoelectric, and fluidic. So depending upon the combination of this sensor, signal processor, and actuator. So we can call this system as this. Now, so these are the some active vibration control. Now, next is semi-active vibration control. Now this semi-active vibration control, it consists of two parts, that is introduction to electrorheological dampers and magnetorheological dampers. So there are two types of semi-active vibration isolation system. So one is based on electrorheological dampers and other is based on magnetorheological dampers. So this discovery of the discovery or development of this magnetorheological fluid and device can be created to the rainbow at US National Bureau of Standard in late 1940s. Now, while the another scientist, that is Wills M. Winslow, in 1949 was first discover ER4, that is electrolytical fluid. The discovery or development of this MR fluid, that is magnetorheological fluid and device, it is discovered in 1940, and the ER fluid, which is discovered in 1949 by Willis M. Winslow. Now, Winslow, this scientist, introduced a concept of controlling apparent viscosity. Consists of apparent viscosity of an electroviscous fluid by using electric field. So he observed that structure, the fibrous structure composed of material chain is generally aligned with applied electric field. And Winslow hypothesized that this field affects the particle chain, which increase the viscosity of fluid. So if you see, if there is no magnetic field or electric field in this system, then this particle or structure, this fibrous structure, is at random. But when we apply some electric field or magnetic field, then this particle or fibrous structure is form a chain, and because of this chain, the viscosity of fluid gets increased. So what is magnetorheological fluid? That is called as MR fluid. The MR fluid or magnetorheological fluid are smart fluids, which are the smart fluids which change their viscosity by application of magnetic field. So by application of magnetic field, the viscosity of fluid gets changed. So MR fluid, that is magnetorheological fluid, is the type of fluid when it is subjected to a magnetic field, the fluid greatly increases its viscosity. And the viscosity of this fluid, it is depends upon the what is the magnetic field or magnetic strength. So the fluid basically consists of a particle. So this is an magnetorheological fluid, so which consists of an particle that are held in suspension by non-conducting fluid. The suspension or carrier fluid is either hydrocarbon or silicon oil. So the particles dispersed in fluid are commonly metal oxide, then aluminum silicates, silica, organics or polymers. So in particular, the particles are very small and very sufficiently low concentration to allow the fluids to maintain a relatively low viscosity in the absence of electric field. So if there is no electric field, or we can say magnetic field, then there is very low viscosity is there. And if we apply some electric field, and because of electric field there is magnetic field is generated because of properties of that fluid, and because of that there is an increase of this viscosity of the fluid. So this is the properties, or we can say magnetorheological fluids. Now what are the operations mode of this MR fluids. So this controllable magnetorheological fluid or devices based on the magnetic rheological effect that can be operated under three different fluid operational modes, namely directly flow mode that is shown in this figure. So this is the flow mode. Second one is direct shear mode, and third one is squeeze film. So these controllable magnetorheological devices or fluid based on this MR effect that can be operated under three different fluids operational mode. So we know that the flow of fluid, it having a flow mode, then the fluid having direct shear mode, and the fluid having squeeze film mode. So the flow and direct shear mode and their combination are used to develop all kind of linear and rotary damper, and squeeze film mode is used to only develop a linear damper and which is limited to some amplitude, and combination of both we can use as a linear damper as well as rotary damper. So if you see the figure, in this magnetorheological field, so this damper uses a magneto, that is MR fluid, and there is coil, that is wire having coil. So when we passes the electric current through this coil, so because of that there is displacement, or which because of this the MR fluid increases the this viscosity of the fluid, and because of that viscosity the there is damping properties are used, so it can reduce your vibration, or it can be used as a damper, one type of damper. Now second type of fluid, it is called as electrorheological dampers. So this electrorheological dampers, so first we are going to see what is electrorheological fluid. So the electrorheological fluid are smart fluid which change their viscosity by application of electric field. Magnetorheological field मध्ये काय आहे, when we apply magnetic field then it change the properties, viscosity property of fluid, and in electrorheological these are the smart fluid which change their viscosity by application of electric field. So ER fluids are the suspension of the non-conducting fine particles having having less than 50 micron in an electrically insulating carrier fluid when electric field applied to this, and because of electric field applied to this the viscosity of fluid gets increases. So the viscosity of electrorheological fluid is proportional to the intensity of fluid, intensity of electric field. So intensity is increases, then we will the viscosity of fluid is also increasing. The viscosity of ER fluid, which is proportional to the electric field increases, its viscosity increases, and as intensity of electric field decreases, viscosity decreases. So ER fluid is a smart fluid which changes from liquid to gel to viscoelastic solid, and the ER fluid exhibit a change in viscosity upon application of external electric field due to polarization of suspended particles. Now this use of ER fluid and MR fluid, for example, this is one diagram or one suspension system which consists of electrorheological fluid. So this system is electrorheological damper. If you see this system, the typical use of ER fluid for vibration isolation is shown in this figure. So the vibration isolator consists of parallel combination of helical spring. So there is a combination of helical spring and piston cylinder alignment, and having either ER fluid or MR fluid. We can use both fluid, either ER fluid or MR fluid. It has been observed that with suitable combination of particle concentration, it has been observed that when the suitable combination of particle concentration, carrier fluid, and strength of electric field, electric or magnetic. For electric or electrorheological fluid, we have to use electric field, and for magnetorheological field, we have to use magnetic field. So it has been observed that with suitable combination of particle concentration, carrier fluid, and strength of electric or magnetic field, the damping characteristic of dash spot can be varied over the wide range. It can be varied over the wide range using a high voltage amplifier. So at high field strength, that is even at Coulomb damping characteristics, can be achieved. So the ERF, that is electrorheological fluid, can be used for both passive and active vibration isolation. So this fluid, it can be used for both passive as well as active vibration isolation. So in passive vibration isolation, a fixed field could be applied to achieve Coulomb damping characteristics, that is Coulomb or dry friction damping characteristics. However, the optimal use over a broad frequency range, one can control the electric field. One can actively control the electric field to the ERF, that is electrorheological fluid mount for vibration control. So this is the uh, electrorheological damper or magnetorheological damper. It uses either ER fluid or MR fluid, that is electrorheological fluid or magnetorheological fluid. So this is all about semi-active vibration isolation, which consists of these two types of fluid, that is MR fluid, that is magnetorheological fluid, and ER fluid, that is electrorheological fluid. And depending upon which type of fluid we are using in this system, that is vibration isolation system, then it is called as either electrorheological damper or magnetorheological damper. So this is some part that we have left in last lecture. So in two lectures, almost 2 or 3 lectures, we have seen the vibration method of vibration isolation and vibration isolation. So there are mainly three methods of vibration isolation. One is passive, second one is active, and third one is semi-active vibration isolation. In passive, there are two types of transmissibility. One is force transmissibility and motion transmissibility. And there are various types of passive vibration isolation devices, that is cork, felt, rubber, then pneumatic devices. So all these are the type of vibration isolation material that are used in practical applications. So this is all about the today's lecture. So thank you very much.